Good American Family's latest episode unpacks Natalia Grace's abandonment. The fifth episode of Hulu's Good American Family marks a dramatic pivot in its storytelling. For the first few episodes, the show was largely told from the perspective of the Barnetts, but the latest episode shows the viewpoint of Natalia Grace, the Ukrainian-born girl at the center of the controversial adoption story. Until now, the series has chronicled the experiences and claims of the Barnett family, the Indiana couple who adopted Natalia in 2010 and later alleged she was an adult posing as a child. Episode 5, released this week, begins to center Natalia's voice, examining the period when she was left to live on her own while still legally a minor. The series, based on the viral and contentious case, is now asking viewers to consider how a child could be left without support and whether justice has been served. Why it matters. Natalia Grace's story became a national fascination after her adoptive parents, Michael and Christine Barnett, were charged in 2019 with neglect. They claimed Natalia was not a child but a dangerous adult who misrepresented her age. Their assertions led a judge to change Natalia's birth year from 2003 to 1989, legally making her 22 at the time they left her to live alone in a Lafayette, Indiana apartment in 2013. This week's episode of Good American Family re-examines that decision through a different lens. For the first time in the series, viewers are presented with Natalia's emotional and physical reality as she recounts being alone as a teenager, still a child by her own account and that of subsequent courts. I think that there's a lot to say about her experience and what it reflects back on society. I think that what happened to Natalia would not have happened had she not had dwarfism, had she not had a disability, and had people not made assumptions based on growth patterns in people of average stature. Creator Katie Robbins told Deadline of the latest episode. Was Natalia Grace a child when she was adopted? Yes, Natalia Grace was a child at the time of her adoption, according to the findings of a later court ruling. Though Michael and Christine Barnett successfully petitioned a court in 2012 to change Natalia's birth year to 1989, effectively making her 22 years old, the Marion County Superior Court overturned that decision in 2023. It legally reestablished her birth year as 2003, as originally recorded on her Ukrainian birth certificate. As Newsweek previously reported, this change reaffirmed that she was about 6 years old when the Barnetts adopted her in 2010. How old was Natalia Grace when she lived alone? Based on the corrected legal birth year of 2003, Natalia Grace was around 8 years old when she was abandoned by her parents and placed in an apartment, first in Westfield and later in Lafayette, Indiana in 2013. While the Barnetts argued she was an adult capable of independent living, Natalia testified in court that she was a minor and not equipped to care for herself. How long did Natalia Grace live alone? Natalia Grace lived alone for a year before moving into her second apartment. During this time, she reportedly survived on her own with limited support and intermittent visits from neighbors and church members who had concerns about her welfare. Forts reported that at Michael Barnett's trial, Indiana State Police Detective Brandon Davenport testified that Barnett said the family arranged for Natalia to receive Social Security disability payments, food stamps, and Medicaid after moving her into the apartment. Barnett also claimed he visited her weekly, according to the Journal and Courier. In contrast, Natalia testified that she was suddenly moved 3 counties away and had no say in where she would live. She added that she didn't know the locations of any nearby stores or how to reach them. While on her own, Forts reported that Natalia had to climb or descend 12 steps to reach her second-floor apartment. According to court records, Natalia said she mostly ate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, ramen noodles, and takeout pizza. Natalia testified that while living in Westfield, she sometimes walked 3 blocks to the library out of boredom. Forbes reported that the trip took her about 30 minutes, and due to her disability, she needed to pause 4 or 5 times to rest. She also mentioned that she occasionally got lost along the way. Eventually, Natalia rested outside a house in Lafayette when a homeowner noticed her and offered kindness. According to Forbes, that neighbor contacted her friend Cynthia Mans, who soon met Natalia and formed a quick bond. Just days later, Natalia moved in with Cynthia, her husband Antoine, and their 10 children. Where is Natalia Grace today? According to several reports, Grace lived with and was eventually legally adopted by Antoine and Cynthia Mans in Tippecanoe County, Indiana. However, according to People, Grace accused them of controlling her and forbidding her from contacting outsiders. She is now living with a couple in upstate New York. What People are saying. Natalia Grace, in an interview with People. It's a blessing to be alive today, because looking back at my 7-year-old self, I should have been dead. All of a sudden, we're with her by herself. She doesn't have to be performing for anyone. If she's an adult, she doesn't need to be acting like a child. Yet she is. So there's this kind of downshift in tone that happens. It becomes a bit more grounded. It becomes a bit more gritty, because suddenly, we are with Natalia, and we are in her version of her experience. Imogen Faith Reed, who plays Natalia Grace on Good American Family, told Today.com, "Our show does a brilliant job of playing with multiple perspectives and creating our own versions of our characters. And you really have to watch it all to get the full picture of what's going on." What happens next? The final episodes of Good American Family are expected to delve deeper into the court proceedings, including the decisions that allowed Natalia to live alone, and the later rulings that corrected her legal age. Meanwhile, the case has prompted growing public scrutiny around guardianship laws and the standards of oversight for adoptive families. As Robbins told Deadline, the intention behind the show is not just to revisit a controversial case, but to ask, what does a family really mean? And who do we hold accountable when systems fail? In the newest jaw-dropper of Good American Family, the series that's been quietly redefining what it means to be a reality docudrama, viewers were taken on an emotional roller coaster ride they won't soon forget. The episode, titled The Little Girl Left Behind, dove deep into the complicated and chilling tale of Natalia Grace, peeling back layers of trauma, confusion, and moral gray areas with the precision of a true crime surgeon. The opening scene set the tone. A quiet Indiana town framed by rustling trees and a melancholy piano score. A lone playground stood deserted, its empty swing swaying back and forth in the wind. A not-so-subtle metaphor for the childhood Natalia might have never truly had. Narrator Leela Brooks, her voice as soothing as it is haunting, invited viewers to ask themselves a single question. What if the truth is more unsettling than the lie? We're quickly reminded of the chaos that once surrounded Natalia's name. The adopted Ukrainian orphan with dwarfism was at the center of a media frenzy years ago, accused of being a con artist posing as a child. But as this episode tenderly suggests, there's a much darker underbelly to the story. What if Natalia really was a child, abandoned and left to fend for herself, while the adults around her spun tales to justify their own discomfort? Through a mixture of dramatic reenactments, archival footage, and Natalia's own raw, unflinching interviews, the show doesn't shy away from the big questions. Sitting in a cozy, sunlit interview room with a mug of tea trembling slightly in her hand, Natalia's voice trembled as she recounted the moment she realized she was truly alone. "They left me in that apartment, alone, like I was an inconvenience." Flashbacks show a little girl, played brilliantly by a young actress named Elsie Hart, sitting cross-legged on the floor, eating canned peaches straight from the tin. The TV hums in the background, a constant loop of old cartoons. No parents, no guidance, just a growing sense of being forgotten. The episode smartly juxtaposes Natalia's story with commentary from child psychologists, legal analysts, and even a former CPS worker who reviewed the original case. Dr. Leah Montrose, a specialist in trauma and child development, delivers one of the most chilling lines of the night. Whether Natalia was 6 or 16, or somewhere in between, what we witnessed was the systemic failure of every safeguard meant to protect vulnerable children. But this wasn't just a sob story. Good American Family balanced the heavy narrative with moments of Natalia's resilience. She's now in her 20s, studying art therapy and working part-time at a library. The camera follows her through a day in her life, interacting with children at a reading program, her voice calm and her posture gentle. It's in these quieter moments, brushing a little girl's hair out of her eyes, straightening a crooked backpack strap, that we see Natalia not as a subject of a media circus, but as a survivor trying to rewrite her story.